I thought it was a trick of the light until the shape blinked. I live alone in the top floor unit of a quiet duplex outside of Seattle. I moved in about a year ago, and for the most part, it's been peaceful. The place is modest. Hardwood floors, drafty windows, and a tiny bathroom tucked off the hallway with a frosted glass window that faces the backyard. I liked it for the quiet, the privacy. It felt still, safe. The first time I noticed it was on a Thursday night. I was brushing my teeth, leaning slightly toward the mirror, and I saw something, just a soft, dark shape behind the frosted window. It looked like the top of someone's head. My heart did this brief little stutter, but I didn't think much of it. It was dusk. The lighting was weird, and there's a tree near that side of the house. Shadows can do funny things. I turned off the light and went to bed. No dreams, nothing disturbed. But the next night, around the same time, I saw it again. Same vague silhouette, not moving, just there. It didn't make sense. The window's high, at least 6 feet from the ground, and whoever or whatever it was, they were tall. I told myself it was a trick of the brain. I mean, the glass is frosted for a reason. You're not supposed to see clearly through it. Still, that night, I double-checked that all the doors were locked, just in case. By Saturday, it had become routine. I'd brush my teeth, glance up, and there it was, slightly darker than the background, the edges a little fuzzy, like it wasn't quite pressing up against the glass. But it wasn't going away, and I started noticing something else. Whenever I turned off the bathroom light, it felt like something was waiting, not moving, just waiting. I would hurry out of the room, not even wanting to look back. On Sunday, I decided to really look. I waited until it was dark, flipped off the bathroom light, and stood off to the side of the window, where the angle let me see more of the yard beyond. That's when I saw it clearly. It was instead a trick of the light. The shape was facing the window, not sidelong, not angled, head-on, as if it was looking in, at me, and it wasn't slouched or casual. It stood with this weird, deliberate stillness, almost unnatural. It didn't sway or shift, it just stared. I stepped back so fast, I knocked over the soap dish. It shattered in the sink. That sound was what finally made me realize I was breathing too hard, like I'd been holding my breath without noticing. The next morning, I bought one of those motion sensor lights and mounted it outside, right below the bathroom window. If someone was sneaking around out there, I'd see it. Simple, rational. That night, when I went to brush my teeth, the silhouette was there, but the light didn't go off. Not once, not even a flicker. Just the same faint figure behind the frosted glass, unmoving. I asked the neighbors downstairs, an older couple in their 60s, if they'd seen anyone in the yard. They hadn't. But the husband did mention something in passing that chilled me more than I wanted to admit. He said, "We found the backyard gate unlatched last week. Thought it was just wind." I didn't still sleep much that night. For the next few evenings, I stopped using the bathroom after dark. I'd brush my teeth early, shower in the afternoon. Silly stuff, probably, but I couldn't shake the sense that the thing, whatever it was watching for me, waiting. But avoidance only works for so long. On Thursday night, something changed. I was up late, finishing some editing work, around 11 p.m. I got up to stretch, and found myself standing outside the bathroom door. Without really thinking, I stepped inside. The light was already off, and the room was dim, just ambient glow from the hallway. And the silhouette was there. I stood still watching. It looked closer, taller, maybe, or the angle was different. Then something happened that made every part of me freeze. It blinked. Not fast, not like a person, just a slow, deliberate dip and rise of the dark upper shape, like eyelids. My stomach turned. I backed out of the room and slammed the door shut. I didn't go near that window for the rest of the night. The next morning, I decided I needed answers, or at least closure. I went outside with my phone in hand, prepared to film whatever I might find. But there was nothing out of the ordinary. No footprints, no trampled grass. But then I looked closer at the dirt directly below the bathroom window. Boot prints, at least 3 sets, some overlapping, some spaced out, like multiple people had stood there at different times. One print was oddly small, like a child's. I called the non-emergency police line. They sent a car out, but the officer didn't seem too concerned. Said there wasn't enough to go on. Suggested I install more cameras and keep the gates locked. That was it. I went back inside, pulled down the bathroom blinds, and the next day, covered the window with blackout film. Thick, light-proof, heat-shielding material. I wanted to make sure nothing could be seen in or out. And for 2 nights, it worked. No more shadows. No more staring. I started to feel like maybe it had just been paranoia after all. Maybe the mind really does fill in the blanks when it wants to. But then came Sunday morning. I was heading out for groceries when I noticed something stuck to the front door. A sticky note, bright yellow, square, just like the ones I keep on my desk. The handwriting was jagged, slanted, like someone had written it quickly, or with difficulty. 4 words. Why did you stop looking back? I don't know what's worse. The idea that someone was standing outside my window, night after night, or the fact that they noticed when I stopped looking. I changed the locks. I added cameras. I even considered breaking my lease. But none of it really helps when you realize they were never trying to get in. They just wanted to be seen. And now I wonder what I was letting see me for all those nights. They weren't animal eyes. They didn't blink. They didn't flinch. They just stared. I was alone for 3 days, deep in the forests of Northern California, not too far off the marked trails, but far enough to feel like I'd stepped out of the world for a while. That was kind of the point. I'm 25, and I've been into photography since high school. Lately I'd been obsessed with night landscapes. Moonlight on water, starlit tree lines, that kind of thing. A solo weekend in the woods, with my camera sounded perfect. Peace, focus, and maybe some eerie mist rolling through my shots if I was lucky. The first day was uneventful in the best way. I parked at a remote trailhead and hiked about 4 miles in, until I found a decent clearing near a shallow creek. Not too muddy, quiet, open enough for stars at night. I set up camp, small tent, basic gear, and spent the afternoon scouting for interesting angles and framing shots. The sun dipped, the air cooled, and the forest sounds thickened. Crickets, owls, wind moving through the canopy. I turned in around midnight, tired but content. That's the last time I remember feeling relaxed. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. No dream, no sound. I just woke up with this weird, prickly awareness, like something had changed in the air. I stayed still for a while, eyes half open, ears tuned. It felt like being watched. You know that feeling when someone's staring at you in a crowd? Imagine that, except in total darkness, with no one around for miles supposedly. I propped myself up, quietly unzipped the tent's inner mesh flap, and scanned the trees. At first nothing, just black outlines and branches against a pale sky. Then I saw them. 2 small points of light, faint but unmistakable, out beyond the creek. Reflected light, like the way a raccoon's or a deer's eyes catch your flashlight beam. Except I wasn't shining any light. The only illumination was moonlight, and those eyes weren't moving. I watched for a while. 5 minutes, then 10. No blink, no twitch, not even a shift. I convinced myself it had to be a deer frozen in place. Maybe they do that, right? I don't really know wildlife behavior all that well. Eventually I lay back down and tried to sleep, but the image stuck in my head. 2 eyes, too still. The next day, I shook it off, hiked a bit further, found a small ridge to shoot from, took some long exposures, got decent shots. but I kept checking over my shoulder. I wasn't really afraid yet, just on edge. Night 2. Same routine. I ate dinner, reviewed some pictures, and settled in around 11. I was half asleep when I heard the creak again. Just the regular trickle at first. Then that same sensation crept in, like pressure behind my eyes. I sat up slowly. This time, I didn't unzip the tent. I just looked. There were more of them. 2 sets at first, then 3, not grouped together, but spaced out, each pair hovering like low stars along the tree line, all at roughly the same height, all staring. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it toward the nearest pair. The beam cut through the dark, lit up branches, brush, and nothing. Just a flash of reflected light, like glass catching the sun. No animal, no shape, just eyes. They didn't blink. The light didn't make them flinch. And they didn't move. I kept the flashlight trained on them, waiting for something, anything, to react. But nothing did. It was like aiming at mannequins. I finally gave up and turned the light off. That was somehow worse. Now I couldn't see them, but I knew they were still there. I hardly slept. My body kept jolting awake with these micro starts every time I drifted off. I don't think I dreamed. I think I was just hovering in that thin space between waking and panic. I packed early the next morning. Didn't bother making breakfast. I just shoved everything back into my bag and started hiking. The trail back was long and winding, but I didn't care. I needed to get closer to people, to anything normal. I made it about halfway before exhaustion set in. My legs felt like lead, and I hadn't eaten more than a granola bar since the day before. It was getting dark, and I knew I wouldn't make it to the car safely. So I set up camp again, much closer to the main road, maybe a quarter-mile off. I could even hear the occasional car in the distance. It felt better, safer. That night, I fell asleep quickly. Until about 4:30 a.m. I woke up cold. Silent forest. No wind, no bugs. Nothing. I stayed still. Then I noticed the shadows. 5 pairs of eyes, all around my tent, equally spaced. Not low to the ground like an animal. Higher, just above waist height. They didn't move. They didn't blink. They just stared. I didn't breathe. I didn't unzip the flap. I didn't even reach for the flashlight. I just stared back through the mesh, willing the sun to rise faster. When daylight finally bled through the trees, I opened the tent. Nothing there. No tracks. No animals. No sign of life. I ran, left the tent stake behind me, just grabbed my camera and my pack. I reached my car an hour later, completely wired on adrenaline and dread. I didn't tell anyone for a while. It felt crazy, even thinking about it. What would I say? Some eyes followed me through the woods for 3 days, and I never saw what they were attached to. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That pattern, that silence, that cold stare. A week later, I finally dumped my camera's SD card and started going through the shots. Most were fine. Trees, stars, slow shutter creaks. Then I found a few I didn't remember taking. The angles were wrong, too low, like someone holding the camera near the ground. A couple were aimed at the tent. Then came the last one. It was blurry, crooked, but unmistakable. It was me, asleep in the tent, seen from the outside, through the mesh, and just above the camera frame, just at the edge of the photo, you can see something. 2 pale, glinting dots, just staring. It started with a window. Not mine, someone else's, directly across the alley. I had just moved into a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an old walk-up in a city just outside Boston. The place wasn't great, cracked tile, temperamental heat, but it was cheap, and more importantly, it was quiet. Perfect for someone like me, an art student who mostly stayed in, sketched, and rarely slept before 3 a.m. From my bedroom, the only real view I had was into the building across the alley. Another aging apartment complex, probably built around the same time. We were close enough that I could see directly into a unit across the way if I wanted to. But for the first few weeks, there was nothing worth seeing. The window across from mine was dusty, half covered in faded curtains. No lights ever came on, no movement, just empty darkness. Until one night, it wasn't set empty. It was maybe 1 a.m. I just finished working on a charcoal study and stepped over to my window to crack it for some fresh air. That's when I noticed it. A shape, a figure, standing in the window across from mine. Just a silhouette, unmoving, framed behind the dusty curtain. At first I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone had finally moved in. Maybe they were just standing there thinking, the way people do. But something about the way they stood, too still, too deliberate, made me hesitate. They were facing me, or at least facing my window. I couldn't see their face, just the outline of shoulders, head, arms hanging at their sides. I didn't watch for long, just enough to notice the figure didn't move. Then I pulled my own curtain closed and went to bed. The next night, I glanced over again around the same time. The figure was back. Same posture, same window, still facing me. I looked away. I wasn't going to let myself get sucked into paranoia over a neighbor. But over the next few nights, it kept happening. Same time, always around 1 a.m., always in the same position, always staring, or what felt like staring. I started sleeping worse, tossing, waking up sweaty, dreaming of faces I couldn't make out. By the fifth night, I couldn't help it. I cracked the curtain slightly and looked through the gap. Still there, but this time, something felt closer. I know that doesn't make sense. It was the same building, same distance, but the figure looked like it was standing further forward, like it had stepped closer to the glass. I closed the curtain and sat on the edge of my bed, my skin crawling. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe I was projecting my stress, deadlines, sleep deprivation. It all messes with your head. Still, I snapped a photo through the gap in the curtain. The picture was blurry, grainy from the low light, but even so, you could see the silhouette clearly, and the way it leaned. It wasn't just standing. It was tilting forward ever so slightly, as if straining to see in. I zoomed in and stared at the photo for too long. Eventually, I forced myself to put the phone down and get some sleep. The next day, I emailed the building manager. I just asked, casually, if someone had moved in across the alley recently. The reply came quick. No one was living in that unit. The entire floor of that building was unoccupied, had been for months. I didn't know what to make of that. That night I kept the curtain closed, but I couldn't resist setting up my phone to record, just to put my mind at ease. I left it on the windowsill, lens angled toward the opposite window, and hit record before I went to bed. The next morning, I woke up with this strange dread. I didn't want to check the footage, but I did. At first the video showed nothing, just the two windows, mine and the one across. The alley between. Time passed. The minutes crawled. Then right around 1:04 a.m., the figure appeared. It was sudden. No fade in. Just there. At 1:15, it seemed to shift slightly forward, then again at 1:30. By 2 a.m., it was unmistakable. The silhouette was pressed right up against the window glass, shoulders slumped forward, head slightly turned. Still not moving. Still no visible face. Then, at 2:17 a.m., my window on camera began to fog up, just a small patch, right in the center. It spread outward, like breath on glass. I paused the video. My windows don't open from the outside, and I hadn't breathed on the glass. I was asleep, on the far side of the room. Then something even worse on the fogged glass. A single long smear appeared, slowed downward, as if traced by a finger. I nearly dropped the phone. I rushed to check my window. Nothing there. No marks. Just a faint, lingering chill in the room I hadn't noticed before. That was it for me. I decided I wasn't staying another night. I packed a duffel, booked a cheap hotel near campus, and left. Didn't even wait until dark. The building manager didn't ask questions when I told him I was moving out. He seemed almost relieved, like I wasn't the first to bail early. I never went back to pick up the rest of my things. Left the bed, the bookshelves, even my favorite lamp. A week later, I opened the video again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it all. And there, in the final frame of the recording, just before the battery died, you can see the silhouette still standing in the opposite window. But now, it sits different. Now it sits waving,